Aloha mai kako. Aloha hina. Pehea oi.
Aloha Davis, aloha aloha, maika ino pehea oi.
Mekai.
Ay, mahalo. What do we got in store for our viewers today, Davis?
So today we are going to be going over the voting process. Yeah, so we know ballots are dropping. I know that a lot of people have questions. So we went over it real briefly, or we went over it last week on a live stream from the office, and wanted to just do that again. Take some more time to go over the steps on filling out a ballot, and for those that haven't received their ballot in the mail, go over the walk-in options,
Awesome.
and then also just do some Q&A, right? And then talk story a
Awesome.
little bit about maybe why voting is important, and we can open up to some of the comments from folks
That,
watching.
that would be great. Davis, I have a request. Normally, I share my mele at the end, but I'm
Yeah,
wondering if you might be able to, while we wait for our viewership to get online with us in this short time that we're going to spend. Um,
yeah.
I thought that this was really good. And Jewel, if you could take me to the slide, please. I want to share this melee with our folks. Nolela e kalahu i aloha e nakanaka na kamaaina na malihini ke kahi mahalo nui o kou no ko kou kipa ana mai ke wahi video live no hoi no Aloha Rising with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Mahalo to my boss and my co-host today, Davis, Mr. Davis Price. I am going to shift things up just for today's sharing because this song says all that we need to know. There are many perspectives on voting, folks, and some of you are saying, yes, I already got my ballots in, and then some of you are saying, oh, I haven't done it yet and I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Some of you are saying, I got the ballots, that it was mailed to me, but I'm not voting, or I'm not sure if I should vote. And some of you absolutely refuse to to get into it. So wherever you might be for voting this year, I call your attention, Joel, if you can take me to the line of the chorus. The last line of the chorus. Well, the chorus goes like this. E hau oli na o pio Hawaii ne. Hei oli mai na ahe makani e pa mai nei. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. That line right there, Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. Forever shall we love, honor, and cherish our Hawaii. For those of you who know Kumuhina, I have been a long proponent, long-standing, staunch proponent of political independence for Hawaii. So it was a struggle for me at first to think, okay, I'm going to participate. And then I worked myself up to, okay, I'm going to run for office. And now I'm part of an effort that's actually trying to hustle and get out the vote. Why? Because mau ke aloha no Hawaii. No matter what my long-term vision and goals are, the interim and immediate focus is on who exactly at the finish of the elections will be impacting Hawaii, the Hawaii that you and I call home, the Hawaii that you and I love. Who are going to be those people? There are some people that, hey, like you, myself, we all have our political opinions. There are some people that I don't think would be the healthiest choices for us. But again, I'm going to cast my vote and you're going to cast yours. And we'll see where that falls. That's part of the process that's acknowledged as a democratic style voting process. But again, it all boils down to me with this line, Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. And I love our people and I love our islands, my islands, my people. That's how I feel about it. So, if you can sing through this once with me, and we'll come back to it at the end of the presentation. But if Joel could take us to the first verse, um, this was written by Makualayana, or Reverend Lorenzo Lyons, and he was a foreigner to our shores, but he so embraced our people, our culture, and made it a part of his life and his living. And he wrote this song with the skill and with the heart, just as another Kanaka would have, even though he was a Malihini. And that can only be our hope, that as a Kanaka, that the other Kamaaina and Malihini who call Hawaii home would have as much love, conviction, and passion, commitment, and dedication to our Hawaii that we Kanaka do. Please join me. E Hawaii e ku'one hanau e ku'uhome kulaiwi nei oli no au I na ponolani o e Hawaii aloha e hau oli e na o pio Hawaii nei oli e mai na ahe makani e pā mai nei mau ke aloha noha Hawaii e ha'i mai ko mau kini lani ko mau kupa aloha e Hawaii na mea oli no ka maha o no luna mai e Hawaii aloha e hau oli e na o pio Hawaii nei oli e mai na ahe makani e pā mai nei mau ke aloha no Hawaii na ke akua e malama mai a oe ko mau kua lono aloha nei ko mau ka Hawaii o lino mau ko mau mala puanani e hau oli e na o pio Hawaii nei oli e mai na ahe makani e pā mai nei mau ke aloha no Hawaii mau ke aloha no Hawaii ke lano ka ho'olelo no keia mele nei mau ke aloha no Hawaii forever shall we love, honor, and cherish our Hawaii. And with that, I say to you that we need to make sure that the people who rise in political power in this current time would be inclined to do the same, and that they will commit their very best to these islands and the people who live here, especially for us Kanaka. I did make one little note. I don't know how I miss this every time, but we will correct that little error on top the mele. I'll take care of it because I saw it. But anyway, Davis, I believe that it is time for us to begin. Jewel, if you can take us back to the start of our slides. Ke olu olu e ho'i kako I ka slide mua. And we're talking about making your vote count. Um, most of you should have received your mail out ballots already. And if you were joining in with Davis, myself, and we were later joined by Mehana several days ago, in fact, it was last week, Friday, you will remember that we spoke about filling in the ballots, and we talked about how to make sure that everything was going to be in order so that your vote counts. So I believe that Davis
That's it.
is going to step us out of the gate in terms of making our vote count, making sure our ballot is done correctly, and making sure that we participate in this year's election. Davis,
Aloha, mahalo hina, and mahalo
mahalo.
for sharing the familiar and beautiful mele. Hawaii aloha. Yeah. So, Jewel, can you go to the next slide? So, yeah, let's jump right into this. As for those of you that have registered to vote by the deadline on July 9th, you should have received your ballots in the mail. So, the ballots, we've been actually announcing, we were informed for months that the ballots would arrive, at least for City and County of Honolulu, on July 21st. And then, to our surprise, ballots started dropping last week on many of the neighbor islands, and then even on Oahu as well. So, I guess that's a good sign that the Office of Elections seems to be on top of things, and therefore, you know, I just received my ballot the 21st, so 2 days ago. It came in the mail. So, and by that time, many people that I knew on Oahu had received their ballots already. So I have mine now, and I'll actually open it up to show you folks some of the process, the key steps to ensuring that you return your ballot appropriately, so that it's counted. Um, Sorry, go back to the previous slide, Jewel, and a couple steps here. Just want to cover. Um, so, first thing, I've been getting a lot of questions from friends about the party. How, can I vote for candidates in multiple parties? How do I know which candidate is in which party? Who are these candidates? Um, and so I'll say the first step I think for folks that's important is review your ballot. Take a look at it first. Look at each party. Look at the candidates. Do your research. You know, in some of the races that I'm voting for my precinct and district, there's candidates that I've never heard of before. So I got to go do some homework. I don't want to just vote on name familiarity. So I'm going to take some time. We have until August 3rd to put these ballots in the mail. They're due on August 8th. So we have some time. No need to rush. Do your homework. So review and research your candidates. Next step on the ballot for the partisan races, which is just side one of the ballot, you must vote for only one party. Okay, so whatever party, and we'll go over this in a moment, but whatever party you check, fill in whatever party you choose, you can only vote for candidates in that party and races that have candidates in that, for races that have candidates from that party running. So we'll go over that in a moment. And then again, mail your ballot 3 to 5 days before before the election date, and we're suggesting August 3rd as the deadline. Um, Make sure your ballot envelope is signed. There is no postage necessary, and then please make sure you use blue or black ink, and don't white out changes. If you make a mistake and you catch it, call the elections office and ask for a new ballot. Okay, now let's go into the ballot itself. So we're gonna share screen and show you a sample ballot. So this is I call it side one. So if you notice on the left side, it has all the parties listed. It has some instructions here, which basically tells you that you can only select one party. So you must select one political preference from the box above for your votes to count. Vote only for candidates within your selected preference. Votes for another political preference will not be counted. And then step three has to do with the other side of the ballot. So what's that saying? What that's saying in those instructions is pick a party. So any one of those 8 parties, you choose one, and then you have to pick candidates that are running for races that are from that candidates from that party. So we're gonna use the Democratic Party here as an example because it's the only party that has all 3 races listed. So the reason why there's these races are separated from the races on the other side is because these are the congressional race and our state legislative races, which are partisan, meaning um, the primary is based off of parties. So you in the primary is intended to narrow down the candidate for each race from each party. So in this instance, the Democratic Party, there's 3 races listed. The U.S. Representative District 1, so that's Congressional District 1 representative. There's state senator, and then there's state representative. However, none of these candidates have challengers. These are all the incumbents. So there is no Democratic challenger in the primary. So they won't face opposition until the general. Okay. So if you pick Democratic Party for this district now, this varies district to district, district from district to district. Everybody, this is for the precinct 24. Sorry, District 24, Precinct 2. So the senator, Brian Taniguchi, he's the incumbent, right? This is like Manoa, Makiki area, parts of downtown. If we were in another district, the senator's name will be different, and maybe they have a Democratic challenger. Yeah. Same thing for the House rep. There's 52 House reps, and in another district, the House rep may have a Democratic challenger, or maybe they currently have a Republican incumbent that has a challenger. So all of these factors must be considered. You don't have the other question I've received in recent days is, do I have to vote with the party that I registered under? So when you register, it'll often ask you, I believe it asks is if you are affiliated, if you're registering as a Democrat or a Republican. For this purposes, it does not matter. If you're registered as a Democrat, you can still vote under the Republican ticket. But the key thing is you can only vote for one party. So if you choose Republican on this ballot, the only Republican candidates in any of these races are for Congressional District 1. So if you want to pick the Republican candidate for the Congressional District seat, make sure that you check the Republican Party. But know that there's no other races that you can vote for there. And this ballot is unique, and because there's not challengers in the Democratic ticket, there's really no challengers. Well, the Republican ticket is the only one that has challengers here. So, and then the Aloha Aina Party, they only have one candidate in one race, and that's for the state house representative. So if you choose the Aloha Aina Party as your party, which you may want to do if you really are adamant about choosing the Aloha Aina candidate, know that you cannot vote for any of these other candidates. Yeah, that's the simple way to say this. Know which candidates you want to vote for, and make sure that you choose the party that they fall under. So hopefully that makes sense to you folks. You have to choose a party, and you can only vote for candidates under that party. That's for side one. Okay. Side two, much less complicated, much simpler. And really, it's not really complicated. You just got to get familiar with it, do a little bit of homework, and it'll make sense to you folks. And feel free to enter questions into the comments here. If any of this is confusing, we'll take some time for Q&As.
Hey, Davis.
Yes.
Okay, so just the other day, I had a friend ask me. Let me start up my video here. I had a friend ask me about voting, and if we could go back to the the other side of the ballot. Okay, mahalo. So just like how Davis was explaining, you have to start on the left column and choose one political preference. You have Libertarian Party, Green Party, Democratic Party, the nonpartisan ballot, the American Shopping Party, the Constitution Party, the Republican Party, and the Aloha Aina Party. As Davis mentioned, um, each district may have somewhat different makeup as far as the candidates go. And so you have to look carefully. So this example here is not necessarily what your ballot is going to look like. In
Correct.
my friend's ballot, there were two Aloha Aina Party individuals that were Hawaiian. And I'm speaking because many of our viewers are, in fact, Kanaka. And, my friend said, well, I want to vote for a Hawaiian. And I don't, my friend also said, oh, I don't want to just vote by party. That's not how we do it. And that's true. That's not necessarily how we do it. But because we're currently governed by American bipartisan politics, a lot of things that we see in mainstream media, they tell us Republican and Democrat. And then we get to our elections, we see other parties and that they exist. Some people will say, well, I want to vote for the Aloha Aina Party and anybody who's going to support Hawaiian things. But in the case of this state election, there was one name in the Democratic Party that they wanted to support for U.S. representatives.
AOC, hidden treasures that nobody has.
And then there was a name in the Republican Party for a state rep that they wanted to support because that person too has Hawaii as their primary focus and things Hawaiian. And I said, well, remember, you can only vote within the party that you acknowledge at the start of the ballot. And I looked at that ballot that my friend was showing me, and sure enough, my friend wanted to vote for one office that was in the Democratic Party ticket, that individual, and then they wanted to vote for the other office, which was the individual who was in the Republican Party. But again, folks, that's going to disqualify your vote, and it will make anything that you do as far as this primary election non-valid, and we don't want to do that. Have you seen or heard?
So let me jump in real quick, Hina.
Yeah.
Let me jump in real quick to point out, that you bring up a good point. Yeah, and that's the gist of this. If you vote for a candidate under the Democratic Party and then also vote for a candidate under the Republican Party, even if it's different races, your vote for this side of the ballot only will be disqualified.
Yes.
But I want to point out that when the general comes, note that this is just the primary. When the general comes, there will be, if there's challengers from different parties for a given race, there will be a Republican option, a Democrat option, and for example, for this race, the state house representative, the Aloha Aina candidate will show up on the general because he's unchallenged. The state house representative under the Democratic Party will show up on the general ballot because they're unchallenged. So just because you if you choose, say, the Republican Party for this ballot and you're really adamant about voting for a Republican candidate for the congressional seat, know that because there's only one name under the Aloha Aina Party, you may have for another race, you'll have a chance to vote for them in the general. Okay, so some factors here to consider, but don't let it discourage you if you're feeling confused or frustrated, because we're gonna get to side two, and there's multiple races to exercise your voice, and just do your homework and take your time and try to make the decision as best as you can. Yeah. I wanna jump to anything else you wanted to jump add there, Hina? You stay on mute.
No, just that again, folks, for the primary election, it's very easy. You choose the party and you only focus your eyes nana ponoko maka iloko okela wahi ihola no, right within that area that says Democratic, if you choose Democratic or whichever you choose. And that's the extent of it. Back to you, Davis.
Okay, mahalo. So let's scroll down and go to side 2. Again, much simpler. And if this is your first rodeo, again, don't get discouraged. It'll click. It's not as complicated as I'm making it sound. I apologize. Real simple. Pick your party, choose the candidates within that party. For side 1. For side 2, okay, nonpartisan. These are OHA races and county seats. Nonpartisan, you get a whole bunch of candidates for one race. You just gotta pick one. So let's walk through this real quick. Office of Hawaiian Affairs. There's 4 races. There's the Hawaii Island resident. There's the Hawaii resident trustee, which is Hawaii Island. Molokai resident trustee, which is Molokai and Lanai. The Kauai resident trustee, which is Kauai and Niihau, and then at large, which is the at large seat. No island residency requirement for that one. So for these ones, no worry about party. Just pick one name for each race. So Hawaii resident trustee, one name. Molokai resident trustee, one name. Kauai resident trustee, one name. At-large trustee, one name. Same thing for city and county of Honolulu. The races and, Maui County, Hawaii County, County of Kauai, your ballots will look different. But know that we're, for purposes of this discussion, we're looking at the Honolulu County and our city and county of Honolulu. And you can choose one name for each race. So for mayor, out of this long list of names, you choose one. Prosecuting attorney, choose one. And then there's 5 council districts up out of the 9. So not everybody will have a council member race on their ballot, but for those that do, again, choose one name. And that's the gist of the primary ballot. So I want to remind everyone that this is bite 1 of 2 bites at the apple. This is the primary. This is to narrow these races down to a runoff. So most of these, I think, actually, all of these races here, so all the OHA races, the top 2 vote getters will move on. Yeah. So in the general, there'll be 2 names to choose from. Same thing for mayor, same thing for prosecutor, same thing for the council races. So the primary is intended to narrow things down. And that's where we're at with the ballot. I want to go. Any mana'o you have to share, Hina, and do we have any questions popping up?
Yes. So while our viewers post their questions to the question and answer, okay, here's one. So basically, if you decide that you want to vote for Aloha Kea and she is a Democrat, going forward on ballot, you can only vote Democrat on that ballot. For the primary election, yes. Whoever you decide to vote for and that person is, for example, a Democrat, then you only stay within the Democratic vote and you're only given the choices within that, in that area. Let's see. I also wanted to point out that, thank you very much for that question. Okay, so one issue kind of make it or break it, vote getters. So for some people, some will focus on, let's say, the rail. Some people will focus on federal recognition. Some people will focus on, what happens on the land. Some people will focus on burials. And folks out there who are potential voters, please know that the political engage can't and shouldn't always be based on only one sole issue. While we may have, um, so many other issues, yet we focus a lot on, let's say, for example, in the Hawaiian community, it was Mauna Kea. But we must be careful because sometimes the vote that we cast for the people that are going to be very focused on that one issue may not be strong in other issues. So again, when we come back to the ballot, let's look at the ballot, please. When we come back to the ballot and we say, oh, should I choose so and so because they're all about this? And yes, you can choose your no, back down. Thank you. You see, you have your selection of candidates. You choose not more than one for the Hawaii representative, not more than one for the Molokai representative, not more than one for the Kauai, and not more than one for the at large. Now, different candidates will have different platforms. They're going to have different focus. And just be careful to try to know your candidate. Try to look up as much information as you can. This is the age of smartphones, computers, and a lot of access. And even if you don't have that access, you might be able to ask your friend or your family member to say, hey, can I borrow your phone? Because I really want to look up this person. Or let's go find these names and see how they feel. There's been a lot of that effort being put out in terms of asking candidates what are their opinions on certain things. So take a look and search for some of the information because people have put themselves out there. And again, while we may remain committed, dedicated, and passionate to just one of a plethora of issues, just remember that there's multiple issues and we have to be wise and judicious voters. But main thing is to be that voter. Back to you, Davis.
A bit about the mail-in process. We're gonna go back to the mail-in process. I'm gonna walk you guys through what the ballot package that we get in the mail. Can put the slides back up, please. So next slide. Oh, sorry. Back to the previous slide. Okay. So here's my ballot, which is actually the same as the sample ballot we used. And I'm just gonna highlight what comes in this package. I'm gonna show you folks. So you get one ballot, you get this secret envelope, and then you get the mail-in envelope. So I was informed yesterday that last year someone put their ballot in the envelope, in the mail back, in the return envelope, and forgot to put it in the secret sleeve. And they were informed that their vote did not count. So all of these steps are really important. So you fill out your ballot, you put it in this sleeve. Make sure to read all the instructions too. Yeah, put it in the sleeve, put it in the return envelope, no postage required. And very, very important, you have to sign here. Yeah, you sign this box, and that's critical because that is what they'll use to verify your vote. So they're gonna match up your signature on the envelope to the signature they have on file from when you registered. So make sure to do all those steps. Fill out your ballot, put it in the yellow secret envelope, put that back in the return envelope, and then send it off after signing, and then signing the ballot. So remember to do all those steps. That's the mail-in process. Now, if you folks did not receive a mail-in ballot and you still would like to vote, you still can. Next slide. And that's called the walk-in early voting. And those will take place at voter service centers. So there's no longer the precinct neighborhood ballot polling. There's no longer the polling places in your neighborhoods, but there are a very limited number of voter service centers on every island. And the early walk-in period is July 27th through August 7th, and then you can obviously vote on election day, which is August 8th. So it runs from July 27th from August 8th. And you can register the same day. So if you're not registered, you can go in and register and vote on the same day. Um, and they are open Monday through Saturday, 8 to 4:30 p.m. from July 27th to August 7th, and then they're open on August 8th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Next slide. And the voter service centers on County of Hawaii, there's two. There's one in Hilo, there's one in Kailua Kona, and then Maui County, there's one on Lanai, Molokai, and Maui. Next slide. City and County of Honolulu, there's two, one at Honolulu Hale and one in Kapolei Hale. And then on County of Kauai, there's one at the Pi'ikoi building in Lihue. So those are the voter service centers. Again, that's where you can go to register if you're not registered yet, and it's where you can go to vote if you haven't received your ballot in the mail, or if you don't want to vote by mail. For more information, please visit www.elections.hawaii.gov. So that said, any thoughts on that process? Hina, have you received any questions regarding the mail-in ballot?
No, I haven't. Although I've been asked a lot lately by friends, who do I support, and why would I vote for somebody? But with that said, I can only encourage all of you. This is an important time. I cannot say that my voice speaks to what you want, and I can't say that my vote would exactly reflect what you as an individual would like to see in terms of somebody who's going to get into political power. But that's the great thing about this year's election. In this primary election, it's a mail-out ballot. All of us will, if we haven't received it already, we'll be getting it any minute now, any day now. And let's see, I believe we do have a question. I'll get to that question in just a minute. But it is critical for us to do all that we can as individuals. If we can do 5 minutes of posting on social media, Instagram, Snapchat, or Facebook, or whatever it is that we're posting on, if we can go look up and watch a YouTube video for 5-10 minutes, or if you can get on your smart device and go check out Netflix, then you can go look up the candidates who have put themselves out there in consideration of your vote. Why? Because we can't just pick at random somebody just because we like the sound of their name and think that they're going to reflect our sentiments when it comes to making decisions. So that's my contribution. And this question, mahalo Nikki for this question. I am registered as an absentee ballot. Can I change before the next vote?
So, let me jump in because I'm not sure if, Nikki, if you're still listening, can you describe why you would want to change? Because, basically now everyone is registered as an absentee ballot. In years previous, I think it was over 50% of the registered voters were registered as absentee voters so that they could receive their ballot in the mail. And really, absentee is intended for folks who are still registered in Hawaii and living abroad so that they could still vote in Hawaii elections. And now, anybody, as long as if you're in Hawaii, there's no reason to be an absentee ballot, but everybody's getting their ballots in the mail. All registered voters are receiving their ballots in the mail anyway. If you don't want to vote by mail, you don't have to. You can go to the voter service center and vote in person. Yeah. If you're not comfortable putting your ballot in the mail and want to drop it off in person, You can also do that at the voter service centers, and you can find information. And there's actually drop boxes located in certain areas around the islands as well, where you can drop off your ballots into those boxes directly. That information can all be found on the elections.hawaii.gov website. So I would like to just wrap up one more thing on the slideshow, Jewel. And that is just pointing out again, this is for the primary election. Primary election day is August 8th. That's when the ballots are due. That's when they'll be counted, and that's when we'll start to hear results from the races that evening. And then there's and that'll narrow down these races. And then we'll go into the general. And the general is on November 3rd. Mail-in ballots will start arriving on October 16th. But as just happened, we should anticipate that the ballots might start arriving before then. So be sure to check your mail in the early to mid-October in expectation of your ballot. And then the walk-in voting period for the general is October 20th to November 3rd. So again, the differences between the primary and the general. Primary narrows down our local races, our state and local races. So state senator, state house, your congressional representative, and then your OHA races and your county races, all getting narrowed down in the primary. And then we'll have those top vote getters. Their names will be available on the ballot in the general. And additionally, obviously this year, we're in the midst of a presidential election. That is when you can vote for your presidential candidate as well, is on the general ballot. So that's some of the differences. I like to consider it 2 bites at the apple. So make sure to participate. And, the next slide, I just wanted to touch on a bit, why is voting important to you this year? And, I would like the people watching to reflect on that. Think about what issues are important to you, because it's very important that we know why we're voting and that we have clear positions on important issues. Even if the candidates that we want to win and move on, even if they lose and your choice doesn't get through, the fact that you voted, it does matter. Yeah. And I'll get back to that in 1 second. We have one question that just came in. We heard that if you leave a race blank, our vote goes to the candidate with the least votes. Is that true? Absolutely not. That is not true. A blank vote does not get counted whatsoever. Our vote goes to the candidate with the least votes. Yeah, no, that is not true. Blank votes do not get counted. There's some who would say that by not voting, you're giving a candidate that you don't like a pass, essentially, but the vote doesn't actually count. And that's important. And that goes back to what I was just talking about. Even if the candidate that you vote for does not succeed in moving on and winning the election, or moving on past the primary for that matter, for the immediate purposes. Votes for other candidates that don't win can still be useful. They can be useful for candidates running if they plan to run in the next election cycle. They can be useful for advocacy groups who are advocating on certain issues. It is a set of data that can be used. For example, if we're talking about maybe a very controversial, polarizing issue, and you have a candidate that stands on one side of the issue that moves on, and let's say there's a candidate that stands on the opposite side of the issue that doesn't move on. Those folks who are against the winning candidate's position can use that data and use that to make arguments to say, even though we didn't win this election, that doesn't mean our voice doesn't matter. And And it's important for folks who really work in the realm of advocacy to have that type of information. Another example I'll give is something that was brought up by brother Sam Kapoy on in the introduction to one of the OHA candidate forums. He brought up why important, he was talking about why voting was important to him. And he said that's something that he had recently learned from the House representative in his district was that, and this is for the district of Waianae, was that, oftentimes at the Capitol, people will disregard the requests of the Waianae community because, and use the argument that they're not registered to vote. They don't vote. So we don't even know where they stand on the issues. And so that, in Sam's, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but basically in summary, what he said was that meant that he heard that and he didn't realize that that's what was being said. And that was a tool, an argument used against that community, against providing resources or responding to their needs and their requests was they don't vote. Now, is that right? Absolutely not. It's not right. But it made him realize that he has to vote and he has to register to vote. So take that into consideration. Yeah, that even if the candidates that you're voting for are not successful, you're being registered, you're submitting a ballot, means that you are participating, you're exercising your voice. And for decision makers, it puts them on notice that there are voices out there that they have to be accountable to. Yeah. So, I know we have differing opinions about whether we should vote or not. And it's not just the Hawaiian community. I was talking to non-Hawaiians recently who were telling me why they don't feel the need to vote. And the argument was based off of the presidential election. In the presidential election last cycle, the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, won the popular vote by 3 million votes. But Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, ended up winning the election because of the Electoral College. It's a whole nother animal, whole nother issue, absolutely justified in feeling like your voice didn't matter in that election. What I shared with them, though, was that's the presidential election. You can, that's fine to have that viewpoint, but we still have local races, local politics. And there is a old saying that I'm not sure who initiated it, but it's an old one, and it says that all politics are local. So if you want changes in your community, the presidential race, although the decisions that the president and Congress makes are absolutely relevant, and that's the big ticket issues that impact all of us, that probably won't make that may not make a direct difference in your community, but these local races can and they should, and that requires participation. And I just want to close out, and then we can talk story a little bit on this kind of the relevance of voting. And that's something that we've talked about through Aloha Rising, that voting is just one tool of many, right? We talked about utilizing media, op-eds, direct action, organizing in your community, education, sign waving, pickets, all these different ways to demonstrate your voice and to elevate issues so that those who do make decisions do consider your voice. Yeah, get all these different tools in the toolbox. Voting is just one. It's an important one. It's the most universal one. So if issues are important to you, if there are things that you're frustrated with, that you want to see change, make sure don't just vote. Do your homework. Identify the candidates in your local races that are running, in your OHA races that are running, and find out what they're running on and make your decision accordingly. Yeah. And for me, that's why it's important for me to vote, because I know that even if, I gotta say, Most of the big races, I voted for the loser. I know governor, I kind of 0 for 3 the last 3 cycles. I never vote for the winner. Um, but I don't stop. You know what I mean? Like that just tells me to get more work to do, and we gotta keep amplifying the voice because eventually, our voices and our issues will become part of their platforms. That's how advocacy works. That's how political organizing works, um, and that's how you know social change works. Right? Is starts off small, and then education and awareness expands, and once enough people start making noise, it will become part of the big ticket races. Yeah. So keep at it. Um, Never give up. That was something we talked about in the very first Aloha Rising series show. Was the legacy of our kupuna that were politically active in the kingdom and at the time of the illegal overthrow and in the territorial period. They were persistent and diligent, and they never gave up. And while there was much that was lost, there was much that was gained. And it may not seem like much, but you need those victories in order to keep building for the future. And we use the Hawaiian Homelands Commission Act as an example of that. Prince Kuhio advocated in his time in Congress for 20 years for that legislation. It took 20 years to get it passed. 100 years later, we have it now, the Hawaiian Department of Hawaiian Homelands, under the state government, with a lot of things to criticize, right? Effectiveness, implementation, thousands, tens of thousands of people, Hawaiians on the wait list, um, issues that need to be addressed. Does that mean that we give up? Is it a solution to all of our problems? No, it's not. But we know we have a housing crisis, right? And we know Hawaiians leave in mass, moving to the continent. Maybe we all got to look a little bit harder at DHHL and building on that legacy, which was one piece of legislation that one person fought for many, many, many years. And it's an imperfect piece of legislation, right? But that doesn't mean that we give up on it. You keep chipping away at it. You keep fighting for it, and that's really the mindset that we have to kind of engage if we want to seek change and achieve change. Is that never give up mindset? So that's why it's important for me to vote. Anything you want to share, Hino?
Yes. That's why I chose Hawaii Aloha. Because out of all the songs, that's one of our most prominent songs that we sing. And it was a non-Hawaiian who composed it. But he composed it, and it continues to move the hearts and the minds of our people today. And the last line of the chorus, Mau ke aloha no Hawaii, forevermore shall we love Hawaii. And so I say to you all, and this is coming from my personal perspective as someone who's, again, been a staunch political independence advocate. Do I like the current political system? No. Do I think that this current political system will be the means to end all of our issues? Absolutely not. Will this current political system be the means with which we reconcile all of the political inequities and the economic inequities that we have experienced as Kanaka, as a people in our own homeland? No. But we do have an opportunity to help put people into office that in this current time would be people that either going to be more supportive of us and our existence in our home, or going to continue to be more of the same, as we have seen that Hawaii has had more than its share of political leadership that really didn't place any greater value upon our people and our culture and our language above just token representation of who we are. So, folks, let's not forget the fact that the current political system controls things like, what do police look like in Hawaii? What does roads and infrastructure look like in Hawaii? Who gets to say what kinds of things happens on our land and with our natural resources? And that all is part of the decision making, processes and governing body, which is the current political system. And whether we actually like it or not, we're forced to reconcile and deal with it in this current time. So to you, my fellow Kanaka, my fellow Kamaaina, and Malihini alike, we need to put ourselves out there to vote. Davis, before I review the melee, is there anything else that I could possibly say to, um, to support what we are doing today?
I just want to touch on something real briefly. 52% of registered voters vote in Hawaii. That's what this data shows. That's the lowest turnout rate out of all the states. And about a little over 50% are registered. Okay. So if the population is 1.4 million, 50% are registered. That means 700,000 people are registered to vote. 52% of that, about 390,000, I believe, participated. There was 390,000 votes in the last election out of 1.4 million. So the overwhelming majority of the people in Hawaii are not participating. And this is not unique. Voter turnout is low in many, many places in American politics. However, Hawaii is the lowest percentage turnout. For me, while that is discouraging to hear, when basically only 25, well, what is it? Yeah, 25% of the population is participating. That might be the reason why we see decisions made the way they're made. And that leaves so many people frustrated and upset, right? When you feel like this government is not doing anything to help us, they're not making decisions that represent the community. Well, they're not. They're making decisions that represent the people who are voting. And they know how to reach them. They know how to get their votes. They use the same tactics, the same strategies every single time. And most candidate campaigns that I have ever worked on, and I've worked on a few over the years, as much as I've tried to bang away at the notion of going after the folks that aren't registered, that aren't participating, because that is actually the silent majority that we always hear about when we're raising issues. Oh, well, the silent majority is in support. No, the silent majority is not participating. And the candidates, when I say, well, look at those folks, candidates that I've worked with, they said, no, we just gotta go for the guys that we know. We gotta the easiest, the most direct path to get the votes that we need to win. Which I get the strategy. I don't agree with the philosophy, but that tells you something. If you're not voting, you're not participating, they're not even looking to hear your voice. So please, with whatever principles that you stand on and that you may feel conflict about, please take some consideration into registering to vote, participating meaningfully, and elevating your voice so that maybe if enough of us do it, we can start to hold decision makers accountable to the decisions that they make. Yeah. And voting, again, one tool in the toolbox, but it is a very, very important tool. So mahalo nui. That's all I will share on this long rambling edition of Aloha Rising. Again, the simplest way for you folks to get information is to go to www.elections.hawaii.gov. Also visit oha.org/vote. oha.org/vote. We have a wealth of resources there for information on the candidates in the various races. Our team at OHA has worked very hard to get questionnaires out to candidates in every race. And although not all responded, many of them did. Understand that there's 105 races up for election this year in Hawaii. So, and I believe there was a total of about 330 candidates total running for those 105 races. So there's a lot of information. We got a significant response for most of the races. So check that out, oha.org/vote. If you don't know anything about any of the candidates, that's a great starting point. If you have done your homework, that's a great place to visit to just do a bit more. There's a number of other websites such as Civil Beat, Star Advertiser that also have candidate survey information. Kalahui Political Action Committee, their Facebook pages and website have candidate information. And then there's some other advocacy groups like Sierra Club that have endorsed candidates based on their focus area of advocacy. So Sierra Club is endorsed, their area of advocacy is environment. So Malama Aina issues, that's a great place to look for information on candidates. And yeah, just start digging around on the internet. Start with those sites that we've listed. Start with oha.org/vote and the Hawaii Elections Office and hop to it. You know, we have a couple weeks before ballots are due, so there's not a big rush, but make sure you don't forget. Okay, mahalo, Hina, Rep, you can take us home.
Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Yes, I can take us home. Again, folks, as one of my dear friends just commented on my social media page, the people who arrive make the changes, and those of us who remain silent, we are the ones who will inevitably be pushed under the rug, and our voices, therefore, disregarded and ignored. Wahala e kapuulana. The puulana wind is long gone. That is an epithet from the land of Puna on Hawaii Island. Um, so I cannot emphasize and support more what Davis has said to all of us today. Even if you don't know your candidates as well as you should and would like to know, there's no better time than the present to start to know. There's no better time than the present to get active and remain active. If we don't like the Hawaii that has become our reality, then it is up to us to do something step by step. There's gonna be no option for us to just reconcile 100 things in one fell swoop and overnight. That's not gonna happen. But step by step, we can work our way towards a different reality. No leila e kia naina ka koe launa nei, wahi ki mai no hoi ka manawa e hime ni ho ai ke ia wahi mele, ke ia mele punahele na kako, ke ia mele aloha nui ia. E mele ke ia I haku ia na makua laiana o ia hoi o Reverend Lorenzo Lyons. O ia mele e like no me ka hua olelo ke ia mele e Hawaii e ku one hanau e ku home kula iwi nei. Oli no au I nā ponolani o e Hawaii aloha e. Hawaii, my birth sands, my native home and heart. I rejoice and echo all of your wonder, my beloved Hawaii. Second verse, please. E ha'i mai ko mau kini lani e. Ko mau kupa aloha e Hawaii. Nā mea o lino ka mahao no luna mai. E Hawaii aloha e. May your divine multitude speak that of your loving people, O Hawaii. All that is shining bright from up above is reflective of you, beloved Hawaii. Pauku e kolu. Nā kia kua e mālama mai ia oe. Ko mau kua lono aloha nei. Ko mau ka Hawaii o lino lino mau. Ko mau mala pua nani e. You remain protected by Akua, your beloved mountain ridges, your brilliant shining streams, and your fragrant, beautiful gardens. And the chorus reminds us, e hau oli e nā o pio o Hawaii nei, oli e, oli e. Mai naheahe makani. Here's the error. I'm sorry, I didn't correct it for you. It's my bad. Instead of it should be a, the English letter e, but it should say mai naheahe makani e pa mai ne. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. Be joyful, descendants of Hawaii. Rejoice and celebrate our legacy. Reminded with every gentle breeze, forever shall we love, honor, and cherish our Hawaii. So let us take it back to the first verse and sing with me. Himeni pukako ia mele o mele Hawaii aloha. E Hawaii e ku'ua ne hanau e ku'uho me kulaiwi nei o lino au i nā pono lani o. E Hawaii aloha e hau oli e nā o pio Hawaii ne e oli mai nā he ahe makani e pā mai nei. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. E ha'i mai kou mau kini lani e. Kou mau kupa aloha e Hawaii. Nā mea oli no ka maha ono luna mai. E Hawaii aloha e hau oli e nā o pio Hawaii nei. Oli mai nā he ahe makani e pā mai nei. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. Nā ke akua e malama mai a oe. Ko mau kua lono aloha nei. Ko mau ka Hawaii o lino mau. Ko mau mala puanani e hau oli nā o pio Hawaii nei. Oli mai nā ahe makani e pā mai le. Hey, mau ke aloha no Hawaii. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. To you, all of you viewers, I don't know about you, but I truly do understand the meaning of the words that are sung in that song. And every time I sing it, I'm reminded of how privileged we are to live in our homeland. And no matter how expensive things get, no matter how miserable sometimes we get, no matter how sometimes we feel so confined that our lives and our livelihood, seems like we're cut off and disconnected from everything that would make us and keep us Hawaiian. Well, there's lots that needs to be done. And there's people out there doing different things. But for the purpose of today's Aloha Rising show, we have advocated for you folks to get out there and impact the current political system. Is it the political system that was perhaps meant to be everything that was going to solve all of our problems as Kanaka? No. But we must take the initiative to act and impact and influence the lawmakers and the people who get into political power that could either help to make things easier and set us off on a different road, or we simply acquiesce and we say, forget about it. And then further and further we get from anybody or anything that cares about our land and our people. Remember the final line of Hawaii Aloha. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. If you and I care about our land and our people, then we will get involved. We will vote, and we will put our best decision-making thinking cap on and take a good look at the candidate, folks, because they really could impact what happens in and around us in our current lives. No leila, ke aloha nui, wau no keo kumuhina, ka awi nei wau I ku'u mahalo a nui no ko'oko ho'olohe, a ho'onene ana mai. I turn the time back to you now, Davis.
Mahalo nui. I think you wrapped it up well. Mahalo nui, everyone. Aloha.
Alo, aloha.